This is the Ink Therapist. Real talk about healing, bodies, and the world we're actually living in. Welcome to the Ink Therapist. Before we get started, a quick reminder. I'm a licensed therapist, but listening to this podcast does not create a therapist-client relationship between us. The information shared here is for educational and entertainment purposes only and shouldn't replace professional mental health care. If you're in crisis or need personalized support, please reach out to a licensed mental health provider in your area or contact a crisis or warm line. And with that, let's jump in. I want to tell you about a client, not their details, that's not mine to share, but the thing they said to me in our very first session, because I think about it a lot. They sat down, looked at me and said, I've been to at least 7 therapists. None of them got it. I don't know why I'm here. I think this is the last time I'm trying this. And I said, okay, let's see what happens. That was 7 years ago. They're still here. I tell you that story not to sell you on therapy or on me. I tell you because that moment is kind of the whole show. The exhaustion of trying to be seen by systems that weren't built to see you. The specific grief of, I don't know if I can do this again. The choice to try anyway. And what becomes possible when the room is actually the right room. That's what the Ink Therapist is about. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm Del Knight. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a licensed therapist in Oregon and Washington. I'm a certified body trust specialist, a certified complex trauma professional, a clinical supervisor, and a handful of other letters I'll spare you from right now. But the thing that matters most for this show is not the credentials. It's that I've spent more than a decade sitting with people who were told in various ways by various systems that they were too much, not enough, or the wrong kind of struggling. And I built a practice specifically for those people. That practice is called Soma Roots Therapy, slow, embodied, rooted in liberation. And this podcast, The Ink Therapist, is the audio version of everything I can't fit into a 15-minute session. So what is this show exactly? Well, first, it's not a self-help podcast. I want to say that up front. I am not going to give you 5 steps to a better morning routine or tell you that gratitude journaling will heal your nervous system. It might be worse than that. I'm going to ask you to slow down, to feel things, to question whether the systems you've been trying so hard to perform wellness inside of were actually built for you in the first place. It's also, and I want to be honest about this, sometimes going to be a little funny because I think humor is one of the most honest things you can do with hard material. And because if I can't find the absurdity in this work, I'm going to cry. Hell, I might cry anyway. Okay, let me tell you who I am. The Ink Therapist has existed before this episode. I've done podcasts under this name. I've had conversations, built community, and then life happened. Practice happened, the kind of full that doesn't leave a lot of room for recording. But I'm not here to talk about what came before. This isn't a return. This is a beginning, a new chapter that happens to have a name I've always loved. So let me tell you what the Ink Therapist means to me, why I keep coming back to it. Ink is permanent, but it's also chosen. Every piece of ink on a body is a decision somebody made about what they wanted to carry with them, what they want visible, what they want to mark as significant enough to be part of the skin. I think about that a lot in therapy because so much of what brings people into the room is the ink they didn't choose. The marks left by experiences they didn't consent to, by systems that wrote on them before they were old enough to hold the pen. Trauma is ink you didn't choose. Internalized shame, ink you didn't choose. The voice in your head that sounds like every person who ever told you you were too much, that is ink you didn't choose. And one of the things I get to do, one of the profound privileges of this work, is sit with people while they figure out which marks they want to keep, which ones they want to work around, and which ones they want to spend time with until they understand them differently. That's not erasure. You don't erase ink. You integrate it. This chapter of The Ink Therapist is also a chapter in my own life. After nearly 9 years at a community mental health organization, building programs, supervising clinicians, doing the work I love inside a structure that was often doing its best inside a system that was often actively hostile to the people it was supposed to serve, I'm moving. In January 2026, I opened a private practice, Soma Roots Therapy, and in July of 2026, we will start seeing clients fully for the first time. And this podcast is part of how I'm showing up for this transition, not as marketing, or not only as marketing, but as an extension of the work itself, because I have things to say, and I've have for a while, and it's time. So here we are. I want to tell you a little bit about how I work, because I think it matters for understanding what the show is going to sound like. I practice from a somatic framework. Somatic means body, and working somatically means that I treat the body as a source of information, not a problem to be managed, not a vehicle for the brain to get around, but an intelligent, living system that has been tracking everything that's ever happened to you and has things to say about it. Most of us have learned to override that, to push through, to think our way past what our bodies are telling us, to use phrases like, it could be worse, which I'll do a whole episode about that one, to convince our nervous systems that what they're experiencing isn't worth responding to. And what happens then is that the experience doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It shows up in your jaw, in your shoulders, the baseline tension you've stopped noticing because it's just always there, the sleep that doesn't come, the relationships that feel unreachable, the sense that you're watching your life from just slightly outside of it. Somatic therapy works with those signals, not by excavating them all at once. That's not how healing works, but by slowing down enough to notice them. By building a relationship with your own body that is maybe for the first time characterized by curiosity rather than combat. The other framework I work from is a decolonial one. And I want to take a minute with this because I think it's one of those phrases that either means everything or nothing, depending on what context you're coming from. What it means in my practice, in plain terms, is this. I don't assume that the dominant culture's definition of health, normalcy, productivity, and healing are neutral. They're not. They were built in specific historical contexts by specific kinds of people for specific purposes. And they've been applied broadly to everyone, including people they were never designed to serve. The DSM, or the diagnostic manual that defines mental illness, was not written about you. A diagnosis is a cluster of symptoms that, when they show up together, get a name. It exists largely so insurance will know what's going on and pay for your care. I'm not treating your diagnoses, I'm treating you. When I talk about healing being slow, when I say that rest is not laziness, that your body is not a project, that the system is often the problem rather than the person, those aren't just therapeutic opinions. They're political positions, and I'm not going to pretend they aren't. I also, importantly, work within a body trust framework, a model developed by the Center for Body Trust that is built on the radical premise that bodies are not problems to be solved, that every body deserves care, regardless of size, ability, shape, or how well it performs wellness for the people around it. Body liberation is not a side note in my practice. It's a foundation. And if you spent any time in medical systems or in diet culture or in any space that taught you that your body's worth was contingent on what it looked like or what it could do, I want you to know that you are going to hear something different here. That is also intentional. Now, I want to talk to you directly for a few minutes. Not to a general audience, not to whoever might stumble across this, to the specific people it was built for. If you're queer or trans, and especially if you've spent time in therapeutic spaces that asked you to translate yourself before the real work could begin, that treated your identity as the presenting problem, that made you do the labor of educating your therapist before they could meet you, this show is for you. I know what it's like to walk into a room that is technically safe and feel completely unseen. I know what it costs to spend your healing hours managing someone else's discomfort. You deserve better than that. This is what better looks like. If you're neurodivergent, if your brain works in ways that the world has spent a significant amount of time trying to correct, contain, or apologize for, this show is for you. You are not a broken version of a neurotypical person. You are a whole version of yourself in a world that was not designed with you in mind. There's a difference. And the therapy I practice tries to hold that difference rather than flatten it. If you're Black, brown, indigenous, and navigating a mental health system that was built by and for white people, that pathologizes cultural practices, that asks you to assimilate your experience into frameworks that were never yours, this show is for you. Healing that doesn't account for the specific weight of racism, of colonialism, of intergenerational trauma, of that particular exhaustion of moving through systems that were designed to exclude you, that's not full healing. We're going to talk about the full picture. And if you're someone who has tried therapy before, maybe multiple times, and it didn't work, or it made things worse, or it just felt like talking at someone who was nodding but not really hearing, this show is for you. Bad fit exists. Approaches that aren't right for you exist. I'm not the right fit for all people who show up for a free consultation. Therapists who haven't done their own work exist. None of that means therapy itself doesn't work. It might mean you haven't found the right room yet. If you're exhausted, if you are a person everyone else leans on and you cannot remember the last time someone asked you how you were doing and actually waited for the answer, this show is for you. If you've spent so long performing okay that you're not sure what not okay even feels like in your own body anymore, this show is for you. If you're a helper, a therapist, a social worker, a nurse, a healer, a body worker, a teacher, a parent, anyone who pours from a cup they never refill, this show is for you. And if you're someone who's just curious, who has heard the words somatic therapy or nervous system regulation or decolonial healing and wanted someone to explain them in plain English without making you feel like you need a graduate degree to follow along, this show is absolutely for you. I'm going to do my best to make this accessible, specific, real. No jargon without explanation, no theory without application, and I promise some humor. Because the work is serious, but we don't have to be solemn about it. So what's coming? Here's a preview of the show. Okay, let me tell you what's coming next. The next episode is called Chronic Vigilance is a Trauma Response. And I want to make you a promise about it. By the end, you will understand why you can't fully relax, even when everything is technically fine. And you will not leave the episode feeling like it's your fault. After that, we're going to talk about what I think is one of the most useful and most misunderstood concepts in trauma therapy, the window of tolerance. What it actually is, what it means when it narrows, and what somatic therapy does about it. We're going to do an episode about what trans-affirming therapy actually means, not the sticker in the window, the real thing. What a therapist has to already know before you walk in, what you're allowed to expect, and why I have very specific opinions about the phrase clinically neutral. We're going to talk about pain minimization, specifically about the phrase it could be worse, and what it does to your nervous system when you use it on yourself. That one's going to be a little funny and also genuinely important. We're going to talk about slow therapy and what it actually means for healing to move at your pace. And about why I think most of the therapy field has a complicated relationship with urgency that isn't serving clients. And we're going to talk about bodies, about body trust, about what it means to stop treating your body like a project you're behind on. I'm also planning to have guests, people doing extraordinary work in liberation-rooted healing, body trust, trans-affirming care, neurodivergent support, and community care. People who are building things. People who are telling the truth about what this work costs and what makes it possible. And every once in a while, I'm going to do an episode that is just me, talking to you about something that happened that week that felt important. Because I think one of the things that's missing from a lot of mental health content is a clinician who is also a human who is also figuring things out. Thus, why I am not editing out any of my misspeaks, because I am human. And I want you to know that. I want you to remember that. Not a perfect performative version of a podcast. I'm not performing expertise. I'm just going to be honest. That's what I want this to be. A room where we can tell the truth. I want to close this first episode the way I try to close every session. Not with a tidy summary, not with homework, but with a few words that I mean. If you made it to the end of this episode, something in you was listening for something. Maybe you've been looking for a show that talks about healing without making it sound like a self-improvement project. Maybe you're trans or queer, or you've been waiting for a space that doesn't make you prove your identity before it can hold you. Maybe you're exhausted and you wanted someone to name that without immediately trying to fix it. Whatever brought you here, I'm glad you came. If you're in Oregon or Washington and you're looking for a therapist, specifically a somatic, queer, and trans affirming, neurodivergent affirming, decolonial framework therapist who is not going to make you perform wellness, Soma Roots Therapy is accepting new clients now with sessions starting July 2026. I accept a variety of commercial insurances. I offer sliding scale. Everything is telehealth, which means you can be wherever your body is most comfortable, as long as it's either in Oregon or Washington when we talk. The link is in the show notes. There's no hard sell there, just a contact form and some information about how I work. Come and look around whenever you're ready. One more thing. I said at the beginning that this show is for people who were tired of being in rooms that weren't built for them. I want to be honest. I can't promise this is a perfect room. I'm a person. I'm doing my own work. I'm going to say things sometimes that land wrong or miss something or need revisiting. But I can promise you that I'm going to keep trying to get it right. And I'm going to tell you when I don't. That feels like the least I can do. I'm Del Knight. This is the Ink Therapist. Slow down, feel it, root deeper. I'll see you next time.